Today, I'll give a brief overview of Cazaly and who we are and what we do, and then just give you a rundown of some exciting projects we picked up in Canada, the Carb Lake Rare Earth Project and the Sundown Lithium Project. Next slide, thanks. So our share price yesterday was sitting at 4 cents. We have cash and investments to the tune of just over $8 million, so well placed, with over 371 million shares. That gives us a market cap of $15 million. Next slide, thanks. So given that the company's been around for about 20 years, that's a fairly tight capital structure. They do have a long history for project generation, and we continue that theme. We're well positioned. We have a great board of directors and very skilled management that will continue to drive this strategy forward. A good example of returning value to shareholders was in 2019 when the Parker Range project was sold to Mineral Resources for $20 million. Almost half of that was returned to shareholders as a dividend, which is fantastic. Next slide, thanks. It's a very experienced board with decades spent in the industry. Next slide, thanks. So just jumping straight into our Sundown Lithium project. So last month, Cazaly signed an exclusive binding agreement to acquire this project, and we've got 2 months of DD that we're currently working on. So we're well placed here. There's world-class lithium deposits, including James Bay, owned by Alchem, and also the Sayona Piedmont joint venture down at the Abitibi Lithium Hub. There's also fantastic opportunities for new discoveries, including recent results from Patriot Battery Metals and also Winsome Resources. So these intercepts are all, plus 100 metres at plus 1% lithium. So great results and lots of opportunity in the area. So we decided to move in with a large land holding and picked up 200 in due diligence, but have picked up 260 square kilometres in the district, with plenty of pegmatite outcrops noted by government geologists in the area. Next slide, thanks. So you can see this slide, it's got the geology on the left. Interestingly enough, all of those crosses on the map do show sightings of pegmatites as recorded by the government geologists, although very little modern exploration was done over the area, especially for lithium. It's been worked over, I guess, the whole James Bay area for gold quite extensively, but lithium's a fairly new space, and you can see there's a lot of success to be had in this area. And obviously also that encourages the government geologists to get out there and do some mapping, and their recent work identified a new suite of pegmatinic granites which are prospective for lithium. So that's really exciting for us. This information only just became available, so yeah, we're quite encouraged by that. Next slide, thanks. So we're moving fairly quickly on this project, moving through our DD. We've already made contact with the First Nations, and once we finalise our first phases of exploration, we'll complete our environmental impact assessment. Next slide, thanks. So this is our basic plan of attack. By the end of July, we will have completed due diligence, assuming that that is satisfactory. Then we'll be boots on the ground, collecting surface samples, getting some geological mapping done, confirming the geochemistry of these pegmatites, with the view to drill before the end of the year, assuming we have positive results. Next slide, thanks. So in summary, I won't go into detail here, but the project acquisition is over a period of 3 years for a total of $4 million for Cazaly to acquire 100%. The vendors will retain a 2% NSR, and Cazaly can have a 1% buyback. Next slide, thanks. We think Canada's a great space to be, with significant government support. They've rolled out their critical minerals strategy, committed $4 billion in the FY22 budget. It's fantastic. And that map just shows you a bit of a spread of their lithium projects. Next slide, thanks. This is just reinforcing that with a quote from the Minister of Natural Resources, and also on the right, just I guess recent funding support that the government is rolling out. So they're quite active, and we see this continuing. So we think it's a good space to be investing in. Next slide, thanks. Moving on to our Carb Lake Rare Earth project, last week, Cazaly announced that we had finalised this deal. So this is another very exciting project. Next slide, thanks. It's a large carbonatite, about 3 kilometres in diameter, located in northwest Ontario. It only had 4 drill holes put into it in the 60s, and they were exploring for niobium back in those days. Next slide, thanks. It's also well located, so right on the edge of a major structural zone. So we think it's got the right ingredients to be able to deliver some rare earths of economic substance. Next slide, thanks. This is a very quick timeline of the exploration history. So in the 1960s, it was big NAMA mines who were exploring for niobium. They drilled those 4 drill holes on the map there. They're quite shallow, about 140 metres, and they didn't assay for rare earths. So they did do some thin section work, which showed there were cerium and lanthanum carbonates. So therefore, we know it is a mineralised carbonatite. I just need to assay for those. Later on in the 1980s, geologists from the government located the core and resampled it. And from that, 2 samples returned cerium over detection limits, which is over 5%, and lanthanum, again, over detection limits of 1%. And the best niobium result there was 7%, which is pretty interesting, given that niobium mines, for example, Niobec is operating at 0.6, so fairly low numbers there. So 7% is pretty impressive. Next slide, thanks. Then basically nothing happened on the project until about 2011, when we had a bit of a peak in the price of rare earths. So a company called South American Rare Earths Corp flew a detailed aeromagnetic survey, which we located the actual raw data for that, and we're just in the process of acquiring that data, and we'll reprocess that in due course. So that's where that project stands at the moment. Next slide, thanks. We've contacted the First Nations, the Sachigo First Nations, and we're just trying to line up a virtual meeting with them at the moment. Following that, we'll aim to get an environmental assessment completed. We've got a team on the ground over there who this week are completing the XRF work. So we anticipate we should get results of that quite soon. Next slide, thanks. Just a spread of the rare earth projects across Canada. Again, great government sort of investment in this space. The Nat Chilancho mine, you can see there to the north, was opened in 2021 by Trudeau. So, the government are very active in supporting this space, which is encouraging for us. Next slide, thanks. So just to sum up quickly, Cazaly's always had a diversified portfolio with a good geographical spread, and we'll continue that. As you can see, we've got projects in WA with copper, gold and rare earths. We've got lithium and rare earth projects in Namibia, and also now moves into Canada with lithium and rare earths. So very exciting space. Next slide, thanks. So, I think Cazaly's a great investment opportunity. We're sort of a very low cost stock. We've got good cash and investments. We've got some excellent potential upside here with a very large rare earth play in Canada, and 260 square kilometres of pegmatites to go and test in Quebec, so in James Bay, which we know is very prospective. So we're very much looking forward to getting boots on the ground there. As you can see there, a diversified portfolio. The Halls Creek Copper Project, which is in advanced stage, we've just received positive results there from a mine scoping study that AU King's completed. And we're also anticipating a royalty coming in from the Parker Range sale, which would be in late 2025. I think I've just run out of time there, Paul. So
you okay? You can finish off, no problems. You're good?
Yeah.
Tara, well, thanks for that. Now, wow, you really do have a diverse portfolio of assets. I can't imagine how many hours a day you work to keep on top of them.
We're pretty busy, yeah.
I can imagine. So, just a couple of questions here, and with regards to your projects, how many projects did you review to end up with these ones?
Oh, I actually didn't keep count, Paul, and potentially should have. You know, Cazaly's been reviewing projects for, well, that's sort of what they do, you know, so we always look at what's going to add value to the company. And I guess since I've been in the seat, it's been constant and it's been exciting. It's also a little bit frustrating at times when, you know, you might see something you think it's got potential and then ultimately it doesn't really deliver what you'd like, and then you have to bat it away and move on to the next one. So it's an interesting space, but I'm really happy that we landed these two in Canada. They've got sort of really good legs and potential for scale, which is important.
Yeah, that sort of leads to my next question. What's the sort of criteria you went through? How was the bar projects you have to pass before you sort of take them seriously?
Yeah, I guess the other thing too is, Paul, is around which commodities are you looking at? So, you know, we sort of look at numerous commodities and we strategize all the time, but we do have a formal strategic session that we run sort of every 6 months to 12 months. Yeah. Just to narrow down where we want to go and, you know, what commodities we want to focus on. We always look for scale and think that's important. But for us at this time, you know, we've got some gold assets and we still like gold and copper, but I think it's quite important to move into that critical mineral space at this time.
Yeah, and look, it would be remiss of me not to talk about the lithium asset. You know, Quebec is a bit of a hot spot. You know, you've got some very prolific neighbours that have been in the press, press recently. Just on that project, so pretty early stages from what I gather, you spoke about earlier. You know, how quickly before you really get an idea of what that asset's like, and you start pegging and you know, start the way to proving the resource.
Yeah, it's thanks for asking, Paul. It's sort of we're working with a team over there and they're keeping us updated. Unfortunately, one of the fires is smack bang on the edge of that tenement package. So we aren't able to get on the ground as soon as we would like. We sort of had planned to get there in the next month or so, but we're just on standby at the moment. So obviously, as soon as we can get in there, we will. But it's going to be subject to, you know, those fire conditions, because our guys sort of said, well, if we take a chopper in, the government will confiscate it. So there's nothing that we can do at this point in time. But as soon as we can, we'll be on the ground and getting some samples. I think that's the first port of call. It's a big package. So we're doing some target generation in the meantime to work out which spots we target first.
Yeah, my next question was about the fire, because I know a couple of companies reasonably close to you that has really impacted their operations. And I only spoke to this company the other day, and they said they still can get back into their mine. So look, hopefully you'll get back on there soon. Tara, I can't thank you enough. Fascinating story. I really wish you're the best for the future, and we'll be keen to get you back on in the second half of the year and see how your diverse portfolio has advanced. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. We'd love to come back and give you an update.